This is going to be interesting. Let's try to do this in the first take. So it's just going to be my raw thoughts and emotions right off the cuff as I review The Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake. This is book one of a trilogy that just finished up this month, actually, January 2024. The third book came out at the beginning of the month, and I had a pre-order, just to give you an idea of what I think about this book. I had pre-ordered it a few months back when they were having like a sale on it where you could get it for a cheaper price. And I got extra bonus rewards points, and I knew that I was going to be starting the series, so I pre-ordered it. And when it came in, I was done quite a bit of this book, and I returned the third book right away without even opening the package. I just asked for the slip to send it back and shipped it on its way. I hate the Atlas 6. Hate is an extremely strong word, and I don't know if it's strong enough to describe my feelings towards the Atlas 6. So we're going to be going into non-spoiler review first and then spoilers. And honestly, I don't care about when we get to the spoilers. I'll let you know, but I do not recommend anybody to read the Atlas 6 at all. Dive into the spoilers at the end. It doesn't matter if you've read it or haven't heard the audiobook. This is not good. I fully understand that there are forms of media that I might not necessarily enjoy it, and I'll be like, that's not exactly my cup of tea, but I know that there's other people that can still enjoy it, that it might be more up their alley, that they'll find something about it that they like that I didn't. And I can appreciate that, and I understand it, and I respect it. This book will cause you depression. If you read this, if you want to see the negative, you don't want to read this. But if you did, you would get the negative, all the negative vibes of the worst people in the world. I can't stand the Atlas 6. Okay, let's dive into the plot because the premise is actually pretty interesting. And I will say that the magic system in here was interesting and really well executed. That is the only positives that you will ever hear from this review. So the premise here is that we have the Atlas 6. It is 6 individuals that have pretty much, they're around like just finishing college age. They're in their early 20s. That's the vibe that I'm getting. All young, all extremely intelligent, highly motivated, egotistical, but at the top of their class in their individual fields of magic. And they all get invited to join the Atlas 6, where they will be granted access in the Alexandrian Library, which still exists and has a bunch of different magic, and they are able to learn and pull texts from the Alexandrian Library, and the library itself chooses what you're allowed to see. So that's another interesting little tidbit there. And after the year is done that they're there, they have to then choose which 5 of them will continue and the one that will not continue. That's the entire premise. Fairly simple. That can lead to an interesting story. You have 6 individuals that are at the top of their game and have to choose which one of them will not continue. That sounds like a good idea for a story. And the problem isn't the writing. The writing is fine. It's passable. It's not necessarily amazing. It's not necessarily bad either. The plot, like I said, in the magic system are well done. The plot is interesting, and the magic system is actually really well done. You don't get nearly enough of it, I feel, in this. The problem is 100% the characters. The characters are the most egotistical, narcissistic, negative, up their own asses individuals that I have ever had the displeasure of reading about. And this book puts you in their point of view. In every chapter, you are going into one of the other 6. There's maybe one character that's almost neutral. They're not good. They're not positive, but they're not horrible. You don't want to murder yourself when you're reading about them. They just view everybody as below them, as pathetic. They roll their eyes at everybody and they try to figure them out completely right off the bat. They judge them to extreme levels, and it's the worst. Everybody has I can understand that there are negative aspects to everybody. I get that. But when you bunch all of those negative minor thoughts that individuals have and put them all, and that's the whole character, is only those ramped up to 20,000, it is a horrible book to get through. You could slide into depression so easily after reading this. You would have no hope for humanity. It is horrible. I don't understand how anybody could read this and find enjoyment in being in these people's heads and hearing their thoughts, their inner thoughts about everything. And they're just so up their own asses. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. The only positive about reading this book is knowing that I will never, ever read anything from Olivie Blake ever again. I mean, even a Twitter remark I will not read. And this is like her, like, it's not even her real name. I am going to keep tabs on her to make sure she doesn't change to another name or her real name to write another book, because I don't want to touch any of that ever again. I do not understand what the hell she was thinking when writing this book. How is this fun for anybody involved? There are threats in this where it's life or death. And because you don't have anybody to relate to, you don't have anybody to root for, you don't care for any of these characters, I was hoping the threat would kill them all. That would have been, a little bit of enjoyment. I would have had that's horrible. That is extremely negative. But that's what this book does to you. It just puts you in the worst mood where you want everybody to die. Horrible deaths. You want them all to fail so horribly in their face. You're the one who's pathetic. You're the one who's disgusting. You're the one that we're all rolling our eyes to. Who are these people? My God. And there are sometimes something that is so bad that you have to watch it or experience it because it's so bad that it's good, or you need to kind of see what everybody's talking about. This is not the case. I don't recommend that. This isn't The Room type of movie where it's like, oh man, you can waste an hour and a half and you'll be like, oh, that's horrible. That is absolutely terrible. But you're laughing kind of. That's not the case with the Atlas 6. I've never read anything like this before in my life. I'm giving it, if I could give it 0 stars, I would. I'm going to give it 1 star on Goodreads. I don't know. I gave a book 1.5 stars last year, but I gave it up to 2 stars in Goodreads because there was at least some things about it that weren't absolutely horrible. But because of the characters in this, I am speechless at this point in time about how horrible the characters are here. So we're going to get into some spoilers. Once again, you can watch this because I don't recommend reading it in any way, shape, or form, because these people have no concept of respect, loyalty, any positive aspects of being human are completely lost on these extremely, when you think about a CEO or a company that is extremely greedy, just pure greed, or somebody that, throws around his power and looks and belittles everybody and just thinks everybody else is beneath them, and they're an emperor or some kind of king or something like that, or they're a billionaire, and you see all their negative thoughts. But I don't think that there's even the billionaires in the world. I'm sure that there is, but I haven't necessarily heard of any that are this bad, because you get their inner monologue. Oh, dear God, it's just horrible. So, spoilers. The coolest part about this book is the one chapter where basically it sounds like the CIA and MI6 join forces together to kind of get into the Alexandrian library. And they show up there, and there's one other character, 1 or 2 other characters I think that have, technically 2 characters, because I think that Ezra is there as well. Ezra is maybe the only character that sounds somewhat interesting, but Ezra is the boyfriend of Lily. Well, Lily is one of the 6, and he's really kind of not really shown quite a bit in this book until the very end. And Ezra is basically going through time. That's what his power is. That's one of the things that he can do in magic, is that he's been going through time for decades. And so he's only lived basically a year or two in real time, because he just keeps shifting back and forth. He'll just keep going back and forth. And so he's only really lived an extra like 365 days, or if it's 2 years, 700 or 800 days. And him and his friend, which is Atlas, who's in charge of the Atlas Six and the Alexandrian Library, are trying to shape the world. And he finds out, and you only find this out near the very end of the book. In the last 40 pages, this is kind of revealed. And he sees that Atlas doesn't want to exactly change the world, because he went quite a bit in the future, and he basically saw a post-apocalyptic world. And now he sees that his friend, who is aged in real time, 20 or so years, doesn't want to change the world that they wanted to. He's going to change it in his shape, and it looks just very chaotic. So now Ezra at the end is deciding to create an opposite of the Atlas Six, and he's going to go up against them. But the problem here is that you only get that at the very end, and I have no idea if the point of eventually reading book 2 and 3 is to go up against the Atlas Six and kill everyone here. If that's the case, there's some redeeming qualities that, okay, you basically gave us a book to hate, and then all of them are going to fail miserably. But I do not think that I've never really experienced that, where you have the first book or the first movie of something showing these absolutely horrible characters that are the most negative ever, that are kind of seen as the people that you're following, to then say, okay, now in the sequel, we're going to kill them all afterwards. I don't feel like that's going to happen. If that's the case, okay. But the problem is that I'm afraid that in book 2 and 3, I'm still going to have to spend some time in their minds. And I can't do that for my sanity. It was hard enough to get through this one book. And you ask Kyle, why the hell would you read it all the way through if it was giving you that much grief? It's because I wanted to get to the end of at least this one, so that I could actually formulate my thoughts about everything that's going on. And maybe by some miracle, I would get to the end and see something that would make sense to me, but nothing did. And I felt like if I stopped halfway through, it would have lingered more. I feel right now, talking about this is therapeutic to me. I am getting this off my chest, and I will leave the Atlas Six in the dust. I will keep this book, though, in my collection to remind myself when I read another book and I'm like, oh, that wasn't a good book. I gave, what was it? The Christmas Guest from last year, I think a 1.5 out of 5 stars, and I bumped it up to 2 on Goodreads because it was closer to the 2 than the 1. And that book is a masterpiece compared to this. That book also doesn't really have good characters either. And I think that I'm starting to see that if you don't have any characters that I'm going to like, that I can associate with, that I can cheer for, that I can root for, that I relate to, I'm not going to like the book or the story, right? I need somebody to have something that I agree with. They can have definitely flaws. I want them to have flaws, but not to the point where it's a detriment to their entire character, where there's nothing good in there. These characters have nothing good in them. There's one character that's kind of just, okay, Lily started off as I was kind of maybe cheering for her a little bit, but by the end, she cheats on her boyfriend, she has a threesome, and it's kind of seen as a good, positive thing that she did this because it was freeing to her. It's when you talk about cheating as a good thing and being in a threesome with horrible people, because she's getting together with the girl who is extremely manipulative and basically a whore. That's what this is. These are and that girl isn't even the worst character. It's Calum, I think, is his name. He's the worst. I hope. No, I can't think about what actually happens in the books. In my mind, Calum just dies horribly. But right before he dies, I hope he gets stabbed in the stomach by somebody I hope he finally trusts and appreciates somebody, gets stabbed in the stomach where, when you're hit, you have about 15 minutes to live, but you're going to go through excruciating pain. Maybe like stabbed through the chest. So his lung is punctured and he's going to slowly like breathe in his own blood. That might work. And he knows he failed. And they say, oh, by the way, the magic that you had, you weren't the top. And the person that you finally trusted and cared for completely betrays you and spits on him and then walks away as he just breathes in his own blood. That would be the best way for him to go. That, I would enjoy. Extremely negative. But that's what this book does to you. It's horrible. So yeah, the Atlas 6, if you've read about it, we can talk about it and we can hash it out and say, man, this book sucked, eh? I don't know anybody that enjoyed it. I can't wrap my mind around what somebody would enjoy about this. Like, yes, the ending, I guess, with Ezra kind of creating an opposite team to kind of go against them potentially sounds interesting, but to have to live through their heads again, I am so terrified of doing that for another 2 books that I can't do it. It's not possible. So that's it. That's the Atlas 6. Please do not read it. Please, there are so many other books that you could read, that you could listen to in an audiobook that would, like, if you want a dark academia type of book, I'm sure that there's so many other books that would be so much better than this. Read The Will of the Many. You want a good book to read that has academia? Boom. There you go. There's no way that you won't. You compare these two, and I don't care if even you potentially like. I don't necessarily want to. Well, if somebody likes this, please explain why. It doesn't make any sense to me. The magic system's kind of cool. The plot and idea there is good, but just everything else is horrible. Read this instead. That's it. Thank you all for watching. You've been bearded in. 1 star. If you give -5, that's what it deserves. We'll catch y'all next time. Beardage.